So we're doing something different today. I know many of you guys go to the large channels for these freestyle recaps, these modern day chess. Some of you come to me for old school chess and endgames. But today we're going to be reviewing the Grand Slam Fischer Random finale, played between Aronian and Niemann, as many of you guys know. Let me just say, Aronian is a 42-year-old super grandmaster. He's not washed up because he just won the tournament. Most people go to Vegas and lose their whole bank account. He went to Vegas and won 200 grand. Not only did he do that, he went with his wife, his daughter, and he won the tournament. He took out Magnus, Hikaru, and now Niemann in the final. A little bit of a spoiler alert, but we're going to look at both games. Hans could have won the first game and he didn't. We're going to look at what went down in the second game. A little bit of a spoiler alert also, not a spoiler alert, but I played in my first in-person tournament in many, many moons, and I took down a 2400 FIDE rated player in a tournament, so that felt pretty good. I'm not going to brag. These guys, they know how to play chess. I don't, but we're going to get into it. We get a queen's pawn opening, except it's a knight pawn's opening because it is Fischer Random. They both played this game very accurately, and we're going to look at it from Hans's side. So Aronian liked what Hans was doing, so they get a symmetrical structure. White is up a tempo, and it kind of reminds me of a Stonewall Dutch where both knights are going to jump into the center of the board. Black is going to claim e4, white is going to claim e5, and it's going to be a big maneuvering battle. Prediction of the year. We get knight to d2 by Niemann, threatening the knight. Again, they're both playing symmetrical again, until Hans pushed this g pawn. Also, let me know if you guys want me to do these recaps. I know you guys go to like Gotham, the larger channels, but if you guys want me to do the modern day recaps, I will. Knight to f6, so Hans gains space on the king side. He's trying to get an attack, but Aronian does clamp down. And now play is going to shift over to the queen side simply because the king side is all locked up. They're both developing, getting their pieces out. Hans strikes with a4, Aronian with a5, and it's an oddly symmetrical position. Both sides like how each player is playing. Now, Hans jumps out of the center of the board, and he's going to do a lot of knight maneuvering upcoming, and it actually serves him pretty well. He's down 10 minutes on the clock, by the way. He has 12, Aronian with 22. We got b6, knight to d2. Knight to f1. This move I was watching live. I loved this move because if you don't play this move, black is just going to stompede you on the queen side. So going knight to g3 and threatening both of these knights is going to pose some questions to black, which you need to do. We get king to d7, absolute savage. Hans castles queen side, if you want to call it that, in Fischer Random, and we got knight to g3. An exchange of knights comes off the board. Hans claims the h-file, and honestly now I'm starting to like white's position. We get h5 on croissant, great move, a trade of pieces, and rook to h1. White is first to claim the only open file on the board, so that's got to be good. Creates a battery on the open file on the board, jumps his knight back in. Did you see how much knight maneuvering went into white's position? I know you have because you just looked at the moves, but it's quite amazing. Hans removes that knight, that pesky knight in the center of the board, and then rather than taking this pawn, he throws in his witch, he takes the pawn on f5. These bishops face each other, this bishop faces the pawn, and at the end of the day, when the dust settles, Hans is indeed up a pawn. Is he going to be able to convert? We might get an opposite color bishop endgame. Queen f7, forcibly trading queens on his own terms. He does just that. The only counterplay Aronian has is the bishop pair. Hans jumps into the 8th rank, guards the e-pawn. We get bishop to e4, rook to e8, tying down the dark squared bishop, and Aronian takes. So the next move that are going to follow is what should have happened, but he should have left the tension because it helps you in the endgame. Instead, he clarified Hans's, I guess you can call it a backwards pawn, a blockaded pawn, whatever you want to call it. It's up to you. And we get an opposite color bishop endgame where Hans is going to play for a win. We get a trade of rooks. What do we know about opposite color bishop endgames? They're boring, they're drawish, except for this one. Why? Hans is up a clean pawn. It's an outside pass pawn, very far away from black's king. So there are winning chances, do not accept a draw. Aronian puts his pawns on the light squares because he has a light squared bishop. We get some queenside expansion, that's the only way you're going to win. d4, very nice move by Aronian, shutting down the infiltration of white's king. Hans goes over to the side of the board where he has the queenside majority, and Aronian makes a mistake. Here, Hans should play b5, and he does. We get another mistake. Opposite color bishop endgame, not too hot for black right here. Now Hans has two passed pawns. How is Aronian going to draw this? Sometimes you win a game because your opponent lost the game. I mean, in reality, that's how all chess games work. We get bishop to c7. He should have went bishop to d8 because with the bishop on c7, black is going to be able to lock down both pawns on the king side. Aronian starts pushing down into the center of the board, and we get bishop to c6, doing just that, just with the bishop, because he's better. Pawn to a5, bishop to b7. This is exactly how you want to play opposite color bishop endgames. This bishop alone freezes both of black's pawns, but white still has a pawn on the king side that he starts to use. King to e6. This is a technical endgame. You could see this in a book, and then you can also see that in a book. He blundered the game. Aronian, that is. How do you win this as white? There's only one winning move, and Hans finds it. G6, deflection, pushes the king further away from the pawns, and now there's only one winning move, and Hans doesn't play it. The winning move is king to b5. Let's see why. He's not going to push this pawn because then you freeze both dark squared pawns. He's going to push this pawn. White would need to play bishop f4. This is beautiful. This could be seen in a Dvoretsky book. a6, takes. White is down a pawn, but it doesn't matter. Why? Because he promotes with check. How do you win this? Well, you're going to win this pawn. There's many ways to do it. I would probably go queen e5. They go here. And then you do the technical winning where you get the king in front of the pawn. You win this pawn, and then you keep getting the king in front of the pawn. And every time you do, you walk your king one step closer until it's checkmate. What did Hans do instead? Let's find out. Let us find out. All right, he plays... He never played king b5. Plays bishop e5, forcing the pawn to move, but the problem now is that he's a tempo down. The bishop gets to a6, disallowing the king to getting to b5. Now it looks like Aronian might win, but of course this is a draw. Why is this a draw? Because both sides just promote, right? Take, push, and only if he made a knight or a bishop would he lose the game, but I doubt he would do that. On to game 2. Game 2 that I should have brought up before I recorded. We get this game. Yes, we do. Aronian kind of prepped with Nakamura, I believe, and they really figured this out for white. It's honestly a lot harder to play for black because you need to think white can do anything on the first move, and you're on the back foot. You need to backpedal and play against what white chooses to play, and you only get a little bit of time to figure out the position. So Aronian plays like a queen's gambit. He gets tempoed on the queen. But as you could see, Hans has 18 minutes left. They started with 30. Aronian has 32 due to increment. Aronian must have looked at this, and he gets the super center, right? Knight trying to come out. Hans is spending a lot of time trying to figure out the position for black, and Aronian had a good feel. Hans castles, white castles, and then he goes h5. It's a nice idea to push this flank. Over here, it doesn't do too much. White gets the super center. We get a6. Arguably, he should have went a5 here, stopping the knight from coming in. He must have not liked b4 expansion, so he's going more for a b5 approach, and that's what he does. Pawn to e5, now it's going to get a little complicated. You don't want to take this pawn on b5 because the knight takes, and then black would be winning as such. I hope I put the bar on because then you guys could see the bar. Instead, we get e5, and Aronian's going to get a pawn on the 7th rank like such. It's one away from promoting. Hans is down to 6 minutes, Aronian with 23. And here, Hans had to play rook to the 7th, so you're still applying pressure to the d pawn. Instead, he went rook e8, and this is a mistake due to the move knight to b4. Now, knight to b4 does a lot. It honestly looks like white is winning, and that is because white is winning. Hans takes the pawn. Aronian takes the pawn. That is a fork. We get rook to c7. That is a pin, but d5, a beautiful move. Exploding the center of the board. Well timed, might I say. Respect your elders. Aronian, I am proud. I mean, I'm very proud of Aronian because it must feel good. You know, people think you're washed up, and you're just not. That is another fork with a check. We get simplification, more simplification. And in this position, there's only one winning move. If you move the rook, all of the advantage is gone after black takes. But there is a pin. A brilliant move. A brilliant, brilliant move because this is a pin. And there's no way to get out of that pin except for f5. How do you win this? You take the bishop. 2 brilliances in a row. If king takes, bishop takes is a fork. That would be a win of the game. Easy money. Instead, we get takes, rook to b7. Hans is trying to create counterplay. King to e1, avoiding any checks. Knight to f4. A good try. We got g3, knight to d3. The king comes up. I mean, this is surgical. He's playing this in a surgical manner. It is rook versus knight. Let me count the pawns. Quick math. The pawns are equal, so it's just a rook versus knight. But black's pawn structure is very bad, right? These pawns, yes, they're two passers, but the rooks are eyeing them in a perfect manner. And after the move h3, Hans just resigns, right? I believe he resigns. Yes, he didn't flag. He has 2 minutes on the clock, but there's just nowhere good for the knight to go. If it jumps back, you're just going to get king c2. These pawns fall. You have an outside passer of your own, Aronian. Excellent job. You are a legend. You made 200K. You made money going to Vegas. You got to teach people your ways. Don't lose it all at the casino. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.